Greetings, this is Jim Lindsay. This is a tutorial on how to make a good website, and I'm going to try and keep this really short. This lesson can run for a while, but I'm going to try and keep it really brief. And so these are the things that we're going to be covering, and you can get these slides from Blackboard and take notes on them if you'd like to. Where we're really going to spend the most time is under making good sites when we talk about the planning process, because that's the most critical point, I think, for you to learn about now, and I think you're going to get some really good information from it. So let's get started. To begin with, I'd just like for you to articulate what are the differences between a website and a page, and obviously you know that there are. A website consists of pages, and if we were in a classroom environment, we could discuss this and point some of these things out. The biggest things that really come out with a site versus a page are really sort of expressed here. When you make a site, you really need to think about navigation. It's critically important to the success of your website. If you have good navigation at your site, there's a chance that people will like it and they'll visit it and continue to use it. If you have poor navigation at your site, people are going to become frustrated and probably not come back to it. And when we talk about navigation, what that means is how easy is it to get from one page to the next? How easy is it to find something? And so with a web page, it's not really a big deal because there's a page and it's somewhere on the page. But in a website, the depth of your site especially can be really detrimental to your site's success. And so as you make a website, try to make your website, let me get my mouse where you can see it, as shallow as possible. And one of the things I like to try and relate to students is I had some guys come in and talk to my classes, and they are professional IT guys, website designers, and they have a 3-click rule. And as they develop sites for clients, they try to make everything accessible within 3 clicks. And so the 3-click rule, being able to find anything in those 3 clicks. Now, that's not always possible. Sometimes you have a really large site, but if you can make stuff as easy to find as possible, it's going to be really to your benefit to do that. So navigation is really important. Also with the website, you need to be thinking about consistency within the look of the pages. They don't have to look exactly the same, but as somebody visits the pages of a site, they should at least feel like they're in the same place. And we used to struggle with that very much at Western. At Western, we used to have the freedom to make our departmental websites look any way we wanted. And as you'd go from college to college and department to department within a college, you'd have completely different looking websites. And so the university as a whole, a few years ago, went to a content management system where everybody's site has the same look. It's very homogeneous, and to some degree it's kind of sad because we lost some of that individuality, but it does make sense because when you're at a Western website. I mean, it has like the WKU main link up at the top usually, and the footers are typically the same, and so it's that consistency within a site is a good thing. And then we've already talked about the depth of your site and being able to find things. So these are considerations when you're building a site versus just a single page. Next, what we look at is the process to actually make a site, and this planning phase is by far the most important, in my personal opinion. I like web stuff a lot, and I've been doing this a long time, and it's probably about every other day I get on, I'm getting into my web space, and so I do this a lot more than most people. And from my experience, if you plan in my experience, from what I've seen, people who plan well for their site have a good experience, and people that don't usually have a pretty negative experience. And these are the things you should consider when you're planning your site. First of all, figure out what you're trying to communicate. If you know what your message is, then you're in really good shape, because then you can figure out ways to communicate that message. If you're not sure what your message is, you're going to spend a lot of time sort of chasing your tail and wasting time. And once you've got that figured out, what you're trying to communicate, then you can get to, you can write it down, you can find pictures that support it, you can find videos or music that support it, get any information like database stuff that you would need and put that all together. And then you can put a very cohesive package of stuff together that is going to get your point across. The next thing you have to figure out is your audience. Who are you trying to talk to with this site? And there are a couple of considerations there with your audience. You want to think about the demographic group that you're trying to appeal to. And you're typically going to be trying to appeal to one or two groups, usually not a lot more than that. For example, let's say you're Western Kentucky University, and when you think about the demographic groups that it's trying to appeal to college-aged kids to a large degree. And so, as you guys were doing your shopping for a university, people are trying to design websites that are going to get your attention and appeal to you. Of course, they also have to appeal to parents, and they also have to appeal to benefactors that will hopefully support the university. But the main, I think, constituent of that site is going to be your potential student. And so, how old is that person? What is their gender? What is their socioeconomic level? What is their reading level? What sort of colors are going to appeal to that age group? What sort of graphics are going to appeal to that? Because you think about it, like the pictures that an 18 to 20-year-old, 22-year-old person are going to want to look at are going to be different than those that probably a 65-year-old person would want to look at. The size of text on the screen would be different, because the old people have a hard time seeing small letters, whereas you could get away with smaller fonts and more aggressive videos, or more vivid colors and sort of intense, I'm thinking like X Games kind of stuff, that would appeal more to a younger person than it would an old person. And so that's what you have to figure out. In addition to that, you also have to figure out with regard to the demographics, what kind of computer are they going to be using? And I've got something pulled up here I want you to show to you. Let me jump over here to this statcounter.com, this gs.statcounter.com website. And what this shows you is, for example, what the most commonly used browsers are. And the reason that is important is because as you design a website, it's going to look different in each browser. And so if you know what your audience is going to use, let me switch. You can use these things down here to make this chart more customized, and I've done that already. I've basically got from January of 2011 through December of 2014 showing here. And the reason I want to show this to you is because as you look at this, you'll see Internet Explorer. It started in January of 2011 with about a 48% market share, and now it's gone all the way down to, at certain points, like 27%, 28%. It's kind of had a spike recently. It's gone back up to around 40, and that's kind of weird. But this is just in the United States. But so 11, 12, 13, 14. So over the last 4 years, you've seen a decline in Internet Explorer use. You've seen a massive increase in the amount of Chrome use. You've seen Firefox has seen a decline as well, and there's Safari right there. But this tells you, as a web designer, who's going to be using my site, and what tool are they using to view it, and how can I, so I'll design it accordingly, because some things will work in Internet Explorer and not work in Firefox, and vice versa, and Chrome. And so if you decide to go into internet information technology as a profession in web design, this is the kind of stuff you'd want to be keeping track of. You can also keep track of which operating systems are people using, what resolution on their monitors do they have, and you can get that from another website called w3schools.com, which has some really good statistics that go back years and years, almost a decade. And so you can see, again, which browsers, which resolution, and so on. So you can make your sites optimized for your market. So let me get back to our presentation here. And there's another audience consideration. If you're going to be working anywhere that receives government funding, like a university, there's something called ADA compliance. It's the American with Disabilities Act compliance. And back in, I believe, 1990, there was the Americans with Disabilities Act passed through Congress. And what it states is that you have to, if you receive government funding, you have to make reasonable accommodations to people with certain disabilities, and physical disabilities certainly fall into that category. And so many people and so many government entities provide their services now through the web. This is really important. If you don't make your sites ADA compliant, you are at risk for losing your funding. At the university at Western, it's very strictly enforced, and it's good. Think about this scenario. Let's say a soldier has gone over to Afghanistan or Iraq and been fighting for their country, and they get injured. Let's say they lose their eyesight, or they lose their hearing or something. And when they come home, who are they going to go to for their medical care? Well, probably they're going to go to the Veterans Administration hospitals, spread all over the country and the world. And these VA hospitals, when you want to set appointments, or if you want to go and talk to your doctor, you're probably going to be interacting with a website to do all that sort of stuff. So their sites need to be ADA compliant, because people with a vision impairment, for example, can use software which reads to them stuff that's on a web page. And so if you go to work for somebody that receives that state or federal funding, you're probably going to have to make your sites ADA compliant. And it's not hard. It's just an extra step, and you need to factor that in as you're figuring your timelines and the stuff that you're going to put together. So that's an audience consideration. As far as delivery goes, where's the server going to be? What is your domain name going to be? We've covered that in other lessons. When you learn about what web space is and FTP. As far as pages go, this is our last important point here. You need to figure out what you want the layout of your site to be. And let me go back to this graphic right here. Let's say this is for a shoe store. And so this is for the home page of the shoe company. Let's say it's Nike, or Skechers. Let's say it's Skechers. And then on this branch over here, let's say this is for the men's shoes. There's the men's shoes, and let's say these are athletic shoes, and let's say these are dress shoes. And then over here in this branch, we're going to have ladies' shoes. And then over here, there would be different categories of ladies' shoes, because I imagine there are more categories of shoes for women than there are for men. And so we would need more pages over here. And so having this drawn out, knowing how these pages are going to be interrelated, these are the links, the hyperlinks that take you from page to page. This is really important. You have to know what this structure is. In addition to that, once you know what the structure of your site is going to be, then you have to write that content. And I would suggest that you type that out. In the tutorial that I teach you for making a website using Wix.com, I have everything I need already typed out. And all I have to do is copy and paste from my word processor into my HTML editor or my content management system. And the reason that's important is because your word processor is the best tool for writing, and the HTML editor or the content management system is the tool for creating the HTML. You don't need to be spending all your time typing in there, because if you make a mistake in that tool, an HTML editor or the content management system, the likelihood that it's going to catch your grammar or your spelling mistakes is it's not going to have as good of a chance to find it as it will in your word processor. And so write that content out in advance, type that stuff up, and finally draw your pages. If you're going to create your website from scratch using something like Dreamweaver as an HTML editor, actually get a piece of paper and sit there and say, I want a picture in this upper left corner, I want the navigation bar up here, and I want a drop down menu, and I want some text right here, and I want to have this sort of thing going on, and you draw that stuff. And then you can use the computer to put it together, because in the next step, the building step, that's when you actually build it. If you've done a good job with this planning, this building is easy. All you have to do is just assemble the stuff that you've already gone about getting over here in the planning phase. And so, now don't get me wrong, the building phase can be complicated. There's no doubt. I mean, your people's entire professions can be doing, making websites and web content. So it can be very complicated, but that planning phase, if you've got the good plan in place, this is a much, much smoother process than if you don't have it well planned. As far as the tool you use to actually build your site, you can code stuff with a text editor. If all you had was a text editor and an internet connection, you could make websites. And that would be a very hard existence, because coding from scratch takes a really long time. What usually happens is that people use something called an HTML editor, and Dreamweaver is a great example of that. It's an Adobe product. And they use that HTML editor to make their sites. What I encourage you to do, if you want to learn about this stuff and do this professionally, is learn HTML. Learn the code, because the HTML editor at some point is not going to do what you thought it would do. And so if you can read code and write code, what you can do with that editor is you can then switch from the graphical user interface mode over to the code mode, and you can find that goofiness and you can fix it. It'd be like if you were a mechanic and you knew that the alternator it supplied power to the car while you're driving. And so if all of a sudden you're driving the car and it just dies because it loses all of its electricity, well, it started just fine. Well, yeah, your battery's good, but your alternator's dead. Knowing that kind of stuff, so if you want to get into this professionally, learn some HTML or learn a lot of HTML, and then even though you're going to use an editor, you'll be able to troubleshoot stuff much faster and much easier than if you don't know any code. This content management system, that's like Wix.com, which we're going to use for our project. It's sort of like Facebook, like Twitter, where you just log on to a web page and you make changes and then it automatically appears live on the web. That's becoming more and more and more common. The websites that we use at Western Kentucky University, it's a content management system. So there are caretakers for each department or each college, and what they do is they go to their prescribed pages where they have permission to change things and they update stuff. And it happens live. You can postpone it if you want, but basically you don't write HTML or you don't write code using this sort of system. This is but somebody has to make content management systems. So if you want to get into this professionally, you still have that ability. It's just the trend, right? The trend is going to continue to be people are going to use content management systems more and more and more. But that's how you make a code. That's how you make a site. You're going for that consistent look we've already spoken of, and you have to collect these necessary bits of data like your images and videos and sound, and you're going to be using video in your website project that you complete. But that's the building process. The next phase is just to test it before you put it out there for the public to consume. You want to make sure that your site works like you think it should. So put it through rigorous testing. If you'll remember, think about the Affordable Care Act websites, the Obamacare websites that went live before they had been tested, really thoroughly. and all the trouble that resulted as because of that. Kentucky had pretty good had a pretty good website system, website in place. We were one of only a few states that actually had a reliable working website, but most states in the union, their sites were not well constructed, and there was a lot of failure. And so, that program for the Obama administration would have gone off a lot smoother had this testing phase been better done. And so testing is important. Once you have stuff tested, publish it, and you use in our case, we would use the FTP process. Like I'll show you how to do that in class. You just basically, or if you're using a content management system, you just basically make it public. But that's the fourth step, and the last step is maintenance. And you just want to make sure that your site and your hardware that the site runs off of are taken care of. As far as content goes, you want to update content. You want to keep that, if you want people to come back on a regular basis, you need to update the content, because otherwise people will get bored with it. Make sure that it's accurate, that sort of stuff. As far as the hardware goes, your web server is a computer. There it is. And it runs off of a computer that's on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. At some point, that thing's going to break, and so make sure you're getting data backups, and you have alternate systems that can kick in once this thing starts to have trouble. It's a computer, and at some point, it's going to malfunction. And then lastly, there's a summary for you. That picture has nothing to do with anything, but I thought it was funny. But here's a summary of what we've learned about how to make a good website. And what's the best way to learn this? Well, the best way to learn this is to do it. And we have a project for you to make your own website using Wix.com. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for your time.